after an up and down sophomore season, Arlo Karimova and his defensive teammates had to put in an insane amount of work so that they could be considered a top 10 college defense at the beginning of the year. Despite their preparation, FAU is not in the preseason top 25. Arlo, though, was a preseason All-American after coming off an award-winning season. FAU started the season facing down the barrel of a top 10 ranked Florida team looking for their second win of the season. The Gators obviously owned this matchup over the long run, but AK-47 was bent on starting the season strong after a disappointing first half of the season last year. And just when FAU needed him most, Karimova came in with the most clutch sack with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, taking down Anthony Richardson. Up until this point, AK-47 had mostly been involved in stopping the running game. His sack ended up forcing a 4th and 6, and Arlo almost got another sack on the very next play, but Anthony Richardson escaped outside the pocket and head-scratchingly threw the ball away before picking up the first down, forcing a turnover. FAU pulled off the upset with the Gators attempting a last-second garbage time Hail Mary to make the score look better, but Arlo and the defense trained all offseason for this kind of performance, holding a top 10 team to 3 points on their home field. The next game would be much more relaxed against the FCS East. Karimova and the D wanted to maintain their no touchdown streak for as long as they could during the season. If they could hold Florida to 3, then an FCS team shouldn't even put points on the board or even cross midfield. Arlo ended up racking up 2 sacks in the win, and after a successful 2-0 stretch to start the season, Arlo had only 2 individual accomplishments left on his mind. He wanted to win the Heisman as an edge rusher, which had never been done before, and he wanted to break the all-time FAU sacks record. That was aside from the goal of going undefeated and winning the conference and making a great bowl game. FAU would go on to face their rivals since AK-47 arrived, Miami, in their 3rd game. Miami fans were talking the most after a disappointing season in Arlo's 2nd year with FAU. The Romanian meat missile disliked very few opponents, but Miami was definitely one of them, and Miami at this point was ranked 25th with a 2-1 record. The no touchdown streak was still alive after holding FCS East to 0, and the Owls D had only given up an average of 1.5 points per game in their first 2. FAU finally took a touchdown lead in the 4th and never looked back, holding Miami's potent offense to just 2 field goals and taking the win. In the next game against Appalachian State, for the first time in Arlo's tenure at FAU was finally ranked inside the top 25. FAU started off hot on D with the pick, leading to a score, and then AK-47 got a sack early and even injured the number 1 receiver on App State. The Owls ended up hanging on to their no touchdown streak, keeping a clean sheet and winning the game 21-0. Appalachian State quarterback Nick Gutierrez was held to 150 passing yards and 4 interceptions. After the win, FAU was still undefeated at 4-0 and ranked 18th in the nation. On a read option in the second quarter, Karimova hit the running back so hard he had a seizure on the field, but the Owls D gave up their first touchdown of the season to the quarterback. No doubt it was an amazing 4.5 game stretch of defense to start the season, and it may very well have been the longest no touchdown streak in FAU's history. At this point though, that wasn't top of mind for AK-47. He was more concerned with the Owls holding onto their perfect record after their 2nd week inside the top 25 since his arrival. FAU's D rallied, and after giving up the 1 touchdown, they scored one themselves to tie the low-scoring game 7-7 at half. On a different note, Arlo's brother Kaysen was just entering high school, but he loved making videos about football. Arlo started bringing him to games to come watch the Owls on weekends, and Kaysen put together some more AK-47 highlight mixtapes. After extensive research about the draft, Kaysen told Arlo that he was projected to be a first-round pick for the upcoming draft if he declared after his junior season. And Kaysen was at the UAB game and caught the game-altering 4th and 16 play. Arlo thought the game was about to be wrapped up, but the UAB quarterback found his receiver at the last moment near the goal line. The receiver broke free from a tackle and tied the game, sending it to overtime. In OT, the Owls forced a field goal from UAB, which FAU matched to send it to a second overtime period. Arlo didn't see the field defensively in the second overtime, but the game went to a 3rd OT when both teams found the end zone for 6. Unfortunately, FAU failed to put up even 3 in the 4th OT, and UAB walked out with a game-winning field goal to end the touchdown and winning streak for the Owls. Arlo had a minor knee injury that made him a late scratch on game day. He would return after his team picked up the win to play against UTEP. So far this season, the Owls D was still counting touchdowns. They had given up 4 in the season so far, and they were looking to keep that number to a program historic low. Arlo knew that a bye week was coming up after their next game against East Carolina, so he wanted to give it his all while still rehabbing from the knee injury. Even after missing a few games along his career, he was just 1 sack away from breaking Trey Hendrickson's all-time FAU record of 29 sacks for a career. After UTEP's QB attempted to escape the pocket in the second, Arlo would finally achieve that goal he had set for himself from the beginning of his time at Florida Atlantic. Arlo was feasting on UTEP's O-line, but like it's been throughout his career, AK-47 could not score points for his offense. UTEP wormed their way down the field, running the option and making short throws, burning the clock. To To add insult to injury, UTEP scored yet another touchdown with 18 seconds left in the game, all but sealing the loss for FAU. The Owls had gone from a 4-0 start to the season as the 18th ranked team to losing 2 out of the last 3, with their offense averaging 14 points per game over that period. It seems that the only reason FAU was undefeated to begin with is because of the end zone shutout games. If the defense couldn't keep the opposing team from scoring even a single touchdown, their odds of losing rose tremendously. To pile on, the following week they played Eastern Carolina, who was ranked 13th with a 6-1 record. The Owls were just 1 week away from their bye, and it couldn't come fast enough. After losing 2 of the last 3, FAU was at risk of losing a 3rd game. Arlo was still getting to the quarterback despite his knee injury, which was still healing up a little bit, but the Pirates took the lead with a touchdown score to end the first half. FAU had dropped 3 out of their last 4, and it felt like the sky was falling, and it was a bye week. Bye weeks are usually meant for R&R and to get your body and mind right to finish the rest of the season, but Arlo was disgusted by the outcome of the last few games. He had amassed 14 sacks over the 8 games to start the season, even though he had only played in just 7 of them. Karimova had a great chance to hit 20 sacks in a college season, which was a rare feat for a college pass rusher. For the bye week, Arlo and his friend and fellow D lineman Evan Anderson went out to Key West. Arlo typically only traveled with family, but it was nice to get out of Miami and vacation with his teammate who knew what drugs and alcohol had done to him in the past. Evan Anderson and Arlo really just chilled out in Key West, went onto a boat, did some fishing, and got some sun. Evan Anderson was telling AK-47 that he knew Arlo could get to 20 sacks and that the whole D-line was behind him and going to make it happen for him. Anderson was excited that Arlo was also going to make it to the league, whether it was this year or next. Arlo was pretty happy with his life as is and didn't feel the need to take that next step yet, considering he had so much unfinished business that he still wanted to accomplish as a team. Yeah, he wanted to win the conference again, and they could still do that this season, but he wanted FAU competing for the Natty. After returning from the bye week, they played against Southern Miss, who gave FAU the most trouble defensively out of any team they had played this season. Call it rust or whatever you want, but it was another game going down to the wire in OT, and somehow the Owls came out with a victory. The Owls were living and dying by overtime rules, which clearly wasn't the best way to keep winning record. Enough was enough. AK-47 had prepped all week to set the tone for the rest of the season against North Texas. Arlo was ready for a historic performance. He had chugged 4 meat missile steak hydration drinks in preparation for this game. AK-47 had 2 sacks in the first half, challenging his teammates on defense each time they came off the field with a stop. The Owls D got 2 more interceptions to end the half, and then in the third quarter, Arlo showed he was more than just an athlete, perfectly reading the halfback screen and nearly picking it off, but the ball just barely slid off his taped up hand. In the fourth, Arlo picked up a 5th, yes, a 5th sack in the game, stripping the ball in the process and returning it to his offense. Even though the defense didn't score the points directly, the Owls D was who put the offense in position to put points on the board. The game was essentially over, but Arlo wasn't done, getting his 6th sack of the game, which was 2 less than he had all season as a freshman. Despite this being against an average North Texas team, this game shot him up draft boards. He used every tool in the trade, whether it was a swim move, a bull rush, or a spin to get to the quarterback, and it all worked. Everything was looking up until Kaysen called Arlo before the Mid-Tennessee game and told him about some family drama. It turned out that some of Arlo's extended family back in Romania were at risk of losing their family farm. This had been central to the Karimova family for decades, and it was a core childhood memory for Arlo and his brother. The Romanian meat missile had to figure out a plan to save his family's farm. It turned out they would need the equivalent of $300,000 US. The meat missile sports drink was doing well, but it definitely wasn't doing that well. Arlo didn't have much money saved up from NIL deals because he had used most of it already to take care of his family each month, so finding $300K collecting dust in a bank account wasn't going to happen. Arlo made up his mind. He announced to his teammates and his family that he would be entering the NFL draft after his junior season. He desperately wanted to play his senior year out to take FAU to the next level, but he needed to help his family, and he also didn't believe in the direction FAU's offense was heading. His defensive teammates understood his decision, and Evan Anderson told him that he was cool with it, especially if it meant that he got to visit the farm sometime in Romania. Arlo wanted to keep the announcement private from the fans, though, so that it didn't overshadow the rest of the games in the season. This meant that the game against JMU would be his last playing on the Florida Atlantic field, and it was bittersweet. Karimova was a finalist and was leading the polls for the Bednarik, Nagurski, and Lombardi defensive awards, but his team had not thrived like he had hoped. Back when Karimova used to be a basketball recruit, his teams rarely struggled in high school like FAU did. He was not used to losing, and he wasn't used to being a consistent underdog. AK-47 had a Kobe-like storybook ending to his college career playing at home, sacking James Madison's quarterback on 3rd down, and then getting the clutch tip on the ball on 4th down to seal the 4th straight victory for the Owls. Arlo won all 3 awards, the Nagurski Gursky, the Lombardi, and the Bednarik, but not the Heisman. The 6'10 monster DN finished with an NCAA record 46 sacks for his career, beating Jalen Ferguson's record of 45. Arlo also broke the single-season sack record of 20, previously held by Elvis Dumervil, with a ridiculous 24-sack season his junior year. Arlo had set out to break Trey Hendrickson's record and hadn't even realized he broke all the records in college football. He was truly a one-of-a-kind prospect at the end position. There was one thing left to do in Arlo's historic college career: bring home the bowl win with the 25th ranked Florida Atlantic Owls against Cincinnati. In the end, Florida Atlantic's defense had given up at a max 15 touchdowns on the season. FAU's defense had set out one goal ahead of the game to not give up a single touchdown to the Bearcats offense, and they had accomplished that. But Cincy's defense got a pick six in the fourth quarter, and they had a 3-point lead with time running out. With a minute left in the game, it was up to the defense yet again to bail out the offense and get the ball back for them. The defense forced Cincinnati to a 4th and 15, and they surprisingly went for it. The Owls were swarming though, and they got the stop, getting the ball back for their offense. Arlo and his teammates could only watch from the sideline and hope that the offense could put together a game-winning drive. With 30 seconds left on first down, the FAU QB threw up a Hail Mary into triple coverage in the back of the end zone, which was inevitably intercepted by a Cincinnati DB. Arlo could only look on in disgust at his quarterback, knowing he was going to be a tasty dinner for his piranhas later. Now, it was time for Arlo to get ready for the draft.